It's a non-core banger. Dr. Ross dropping knowledge to the masses. Man, you now tuned in to purpose and practice. Ayy, yeah, purpose and practice. Keep your mental sharp, learn all the tactics. Dr. Ross dropping knowledge to the masses. Man, you now tuned in to purpose and practice. Ayy, yeah, purpose and practice. Podcast game, ayy, he got it mastered. Encore.
Peace to the purpose and practice community. We are back with another banger. We got another episode of the show. We took the month of July pretty much off. I just felt like I needed a break. And I mean, I think that we get to those spots and points where we just kind of need to recharge. And I was definitely at that point. I was like, you know what? I'm going to take some time off. And, kind of like relax and reflect on a lot of the things that, I've encountered and we've all encountered over this last year. But we are back, and the cool thing is that this month is like our anniversary month. This was the month that we began the show last year. And we are back today with an episode, and this is episode number 41, believe it or not. We are 41 episodes in, and that is just... that's crazy. And we have with us today. I'm very thankful for having our guest today, who's going to talk to us a lot about. We're going to get into mental health, and we're going to get into the importance of mental health. But I love the approach that she takes it from, in terms of looking at it from like entrepreneurial standpoint, from a business standpoint, and how to make sure that you're vibing, so to speak, and being mentally healthy. And I think that those things are really, really important. So we have on the show the founder of VIVE, Nastasya Rose. I know I may have mispronounced it, and she said you can call me Nas for sure. But Nas, how are you feeling tonight?
I'm feeling wonderful. I'm feeling very honored to be here. Thank you so much for bringing me in as a guest. And it's I'm honored. That's how I'm feeling right now. Honored. Yeah.
Well, we are honored to have you, man. I've been watching you, following you on Instagram, following your posts, following the work that you're doing. I had a chance to check the website out. It's something that, I'm really interested in hearing more about your ideas and the formation of your idea for the founding of your company, and then hearing more about the services, that you offer, and why you offer those services. But like always, here in the Purpose of Practice community, what we are about is we know that you don't just wake up one day and become, a CEO, or a founder, of a company. We know that there's always a backstory. And what we like to do is share those backstories with our community. So with that said, we have a part or a segment of our show called the early years, where we start talking about like growing up, where you grew up, what it was like growing up, and sharing some of your childhood with us. If you don't mind taking us back.
Yes, I would definitely love to share. So it really did start in, we'll go as far back as when I was walking around with my dad's camera case in his house in Ossining, New York. He was a filmmaker for over 30 years. And my parents were already having issues, but he wanted to do his best to, keep me as his dad. So I still saw the photo, he reminded me of the photos recently. And, that was me running around wanting to be in my dad's footsteps. He's a filmmaker for over 30 years. So basically he would print his scripts and I would, one by one, 2 years old, handing him the paper,
Wow.
that was what I was witnessing, all the way till his big break with his Capoeira film, Only the Strong. He wrote the script. And he, everyone loves hearing that story. Like, what? That's your dad? Like,
I was going to say, wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. Fun fact, that movie, the lead role, Louis Stevens, that was actually inspired from my dad in real life, Luis Esteban. And he was the teacher in real life for kids in the Bronx, the Roughnecks, after school. So, yeah.
No.
So that really happened. yeah, that was it. And yeah, I've watched him, and I mean, we can leave it there if you want, because I don't mind bragging about my dad. I'm very proud of
Listen,
him.
man. I listen. You see, here's what I love those stories because that's what gives us all context. Our family relations, our family history. So we're here for that. You know what I'm saying? Like, but that's a cool story. I never knew that until now.
Yeah, he came out with that, and I went to the premiere and the limo and all that jazz, and it was really nice, like, to just experience that at such a young age and from humble beginnings, because it's not like we were super wealthy. I'm from the Bronx, so we weren't completely, huge on our riches. It's just my dad was very much about making a difference in film, and he did what he had to do, so I'm very proud of him with that. And then the situation came with my mom. So I was trying to, I guess, be bi-coastal at a young age because my parents didn't work out. But my mom did her best as she could as a parent, but between 4 and 14, it was very traumatic. Like, I was attracting a lot of craziness, and I didn't know why I was attracting it. And when my mom was diagnosed bipolar, it all made sense. So once that happened, I was like, oh, so this is why all of this mess is happening in my life right now, because I just I'm literally living the mess at home.
Yes.
So that was a very crazy 10 years. But going back to the pictures from 2 to 4 with my dad, like, it's ironic. It's really weird how life turns around. I've really mixed the experiences I've been through with both of them, and I put it into my work today. But when my mom was diagnosed, that's when I did my research, and I picked up my first psychology book, and I did a good amount of research for a few years. And then finally, by my early 20s, I started Vive, because I was like, okay, if we're really my belief became, if we knew how to be self-aware in our energy, if we knew how to actually manage our energy well, we could live a great life no matter what we've come from. And that was when Vive got founded. Yeah.
That's crazy. It's a few things that you said, and a lot of us have experienced traumatic experiences growing up, and I know in the counseling world they call them adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs, and one of them is like dealing and going through a divorce, as a child. That is one. Another one is like, having family members, or those who may be raising us, who struggle with mental illness and challenges in that way. A lot of times, Nas, that stuff goes sometimes undiagnosed. Okay, that's one thing, and then unmentioned in our families. And I just wanted to ask you, and thank you for sharing that, by the way. But if you could just talk to did you feel a sense of relief when you knew that about your mom? Did it kind of help you in terms of self-awareness and identifying things?
Oh, yes, absolutely. It actually happens because, there was a lot, like I said, a lot of things happened between 4 to 14. I was molested from my step grandfather at 4. And then I went through all this craziness with how my relationship was with my mom after that. And then at 14, I didn't lose my virginity by choice either. So it's just, it was just so crazy. And I was getting to the point where I was getting suicidal because I didn't understand why I kept attracting all this, because I clearly didn't want it. I would have loved to have stood a virgin till marriage. We was raised Pentecostal, like that was just the way. And I got very depressed. I was very sad, and my mom had to send a psychotherapist to the house. And then we also had set an appointment to go to a psychiatrist. So when this happened, we were at the seat sitting down in session, and the way that my mom was acting, like every time the psychiatrist would ask a question, she would jump in, like wanting to say something else. And the psychiatrist like just saw the red flags. So the spotlight quickly went from me to my mom. And then the psychiatrist ended up diagnosing my mom. So I felt so relieved because it all made sense. I was like, wow, it's not like there's something wrong with me. I'm living with what this is, and I've got to do something about it. I felt very, very relieved. Yeah, my mom was pissed, but I was relieved.
Yes, but well, first of all, thank you for your candidness, and sharing, your story, because I just mentioned adverse childhood experiences, and you just went through, and I think there are 14 of them. You just went through like 5 of them, and then for you to be here, not only have gone through them and not only survived them, but it's like thriving and then making situations better for other folks who may be experiencing similar things. That's a testament to you. Shout out to you. And it's so, I work in education, so many times, if I work with parents, and a lot of times it's so what you just said happens, not to that level, but a lot of times when having conversations with parents, they begin to kind of disclose things to me, and it's almost becomes like a quote unquote not that I'm a counselor, but a counseling session in terms of the parents letting out, and emptying out. And it sounds like that was kind of what was happening there.
Mm-hmm. It was, yeah. It was very much like we knew there was something up, but we weren't diving deep enough into it because of the anger that was in the way, right? Like my parents not working out. My mom was clearly in love with my father, and she was pissed about that. And then she would take it out on me, saying that she would hurt me because when she looks at me, she sees my father. And that's what I'm living with in my childhood years. So it's funny when I get asked about anything in childhood because this was what I was dealing with, And the worst part about it was I loved when you said that things are unspoken in family, because it really is. Like we would go to these family gatherings and my uncles knew, that things, obviously something was up at home, but like all they could do is tell me like, hey, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And I just got fed up of hearing it was going to be okay. So I actually did the ridiculous, left both of my parents and went into a homeless shelter for a year to go through their system to get my own apartment at 16. And I always said, I'm going to come back and help the kids. And I do. It's Covenant House. Yeah.
Wow. Shout out to Covenant House. The work that's done there. And I came into contact when I was going to school in Jersey City. And that's when I first learned about Covenant House. And I actually did some volunteer work for a while there when I was in college. But that they're still going is so powerful, in the work that they do. So hold on. And I gotta go back, because you said that you just said, all right, I'm gonna go into a homeless shelter. So you left both parents. And
yeah, I left both parents.
And that was at 16?
Yep, between 14 to 16, I just made the decision. I never finished my I never finished high school. I ended up doing my GED because I was already dealing with it. I could have had the life in high school. My dad was in California. I was in show choir, singing and dancing away, and it was just the life, and I really loved it there. But my mom always kept pulling me back, even after my dad won custody. And I just got fed up of messing this up for both of my parents. Like there was no winning with either. My dad was doing his best to not bad talk my mom, but my mom was being hella manipulative. But of course, with given her diagnosis. So I was just like, forget both of y'all is kind of what I was operating like at the time. And it wasn't in any it wasn't in any malicious way, because I actually have a really great relationship with my dad. He's actually coming in October, but that took time too, because I was in the middle of it all, even though my dad was trying to not have me be that way. And with my mom, there was so much denial within the diagnosis. And all the way until our current days, my mom just got found after 3 years missing. So it's like, it's just insane. Like, it's so insane what goes on in family and what gets unspoken. But the reason why I did it, because I didn't have to do it, but at the same time I did, was because of what I was going through at home. Like, I felt like it was energetically eating me alive. And I tried going to like living with one of my uncles. I was praying I would get adopted by one of my aunts in Florida. And no one was budging to take me because no one was trying to deal with my mom. So I was just like, okay, none of you are going to take care of me. I'm going to have to take care of myself then. And that was what I did.
Wow. If you don't mind, how does one come to that kind of decision? Was it, do you, when in looking back, was it kind of like, all right, it was a series of events, obviously, but did something just hit you where like you were like, I'm out of here? Or like, how does that happen? Because that's a big, we talk about leaps a lot, and taking the leap of faith, and going out on a limb. That's a big jump, for a 16-year-old.
Yeah, it was the diagnosis. At first I like processed it. My mom, we actually shot out of that session when she got diagnosed, and like she wouldn't even let the psychiatrist finish explaining. And I just remember going to the supermarket in the produce section, and she was just screaming at one of her friends in Spanish, totally pissed. And
Mhm.
I felt this numbness of relief all over my body, and it all made sense. So after that, I was like, yeah, I can't live this anymore. And the thing is, one of the symptoms that comes with I feel a lot of the levels of bipolar disorder is the manipulation. It's very heavy. And every time I tried leaving my mom to go live with my dad and live a better life, my mom would always be there manipulating me in the ear on the phone
Yeah.
in order to get me to come back, and I would always be a sucker for it. And after I got exposed to my mom's diagnosis, I did try to come back after my dad won custody to live with my dad and be around my childhood friends. And I just couldn't. I couldn't unsee what I saw. Like, I couldn't unsee anything of what I saw. 14 was like literally one of the craziest years of my life. And, I was just like, I can't. I have to do something with what I've been exposed to, because it just doesn't add up anymore. I was getting accepted to colleges at, as young as, even at this age, like colleges were writing my house, like, hey, you
Yes.
want to try to come in? And I was like, no, this isn't where I'm going to
Was
make a difference. I literally said that in my head at that age. I was like, this isn't where I'm going to make a difference. I have to go get more answers. And
that
that was what I did. Yeah.
and that kind of self-awareness, someone in the chat was like, you're built different, because that's a level of self-awareness that really is different for a teenager. If you don't mind, Nas, if you could talk a little bit about what what were some of the things that kind of helped you through those spaces and those periods? A lot of times we have sort of like go-to people in our lives, or sometimes we have a spiritual escape, hobbies or writing. Like, what were some of the things that got you, if you would say it helped you maneuver and navigate through that time period? What would those things be?
Yeah. Well, what I was trying to do was I was trying to find my support system to get it through it all. And I tried to do it through friends and through family. And because of what I was energetically leaving from, there's a detox process,
Yes.
and I didn't really understand that in full yet, obviously, as a kid. So I was still attracting friends that didn't align with the life that I wanted to
Ah,
live. The drug dealers, the partiers, like all this stuff. Like I was living with Busta Rhymes's, connects back in the day at one point. It was
wow.
just insane. So just the people that I was attracting, it was just like, wow, I'm still not creating the life I want to create. And I kept getting in trouble for a few years. So, how did I cope? I tried getting the support systems, but I still wasn't succeeding. And now, when I look back, I know that the reason is because I didn't do the proper detox process. Like, when you go through things like that, you've got to really sit with yourself before you try to connect with friends and family. And I was doing it in reverse. I was running to friends and family for survival, for safety, but no one knew how to deal with this type of situation. It was just so unique. My family still doesn't know how to deal with it,
Wow.
Yeah.
That detox, and I know that we're going to get into that, but what you said is so true. So many times we move, whatever it is, whether it's a relationship, even if it's a job, a career. Sometimes we run from a situation that we have deemed, it was not a good situation for us, and we run right into another situation.
Mhm.
And you putting it in the sense, I've never looked at it that way, in terms of like, did you go through a detox? Did you sit, as you explained it, sit with yourself? Did you sit with yourself? So once you hit that stage where you were sitting with yourself and understanding that, all right, I gotta stop trying to chase and I got to let things kind of come to me, and be ready. Is that when you kind of felt like things in your life you began to attract more positive?
Yeah. And it's sad to say, but I feel like I'm just now attracting the energy that I want in my life at 33 years old. Like, I wish that I had this type of energy 20 years ago,
Yeah.
like I really would have preferred that. But it took a while, without the proper guidance, without the aligned support. Like Jay said, the right support
Hmm.
system is indeed
Hmm.
essential. It really is essential. And I didn't know how to sit with myself. If I wasn't with the wrong friends or the not aligned enough family members, I was drinking alcohol. Like,
Yeah.
alcohol was a huge bad habit I took on till even, recently, where I was just like, I don't want to drink so much anymore. It doesn't make me a great person. It doesn't make me happy. It doesn't help with the relationships I want to have in my life. And, now I've lowered it a ton. And all my friends now who see me, they're like, wow, like your face is really cleaning up a lot. And I
Mhm.
was like, well, it wasn't helping me. I wasn't creating results. So, it really just comes down to that desire to be able to sit with yourself, because if you don't do that, it's going to be tough. I didn't start attracting that until I was at a mature enough level with the aligned support to sit with it, because you want to be careful with that too. You don't want to sit with yourself when you don't have the aligned support. You need to find that mental health provider that can guide you through that sitting, because it's an intense sitting.
That's what I was getting ready to ask you that, because I was like, listen, sometimes we don't want to look in that mirror because we're not going to like what we see.
We see.
So talk a little bit about the importance of, you mentioned like a counselor, because that can be very difficult. Some people may be able to deal with it, like kind of like getting in tune and becoming one, and really deeply reflecting without it becoming traumatic, traumatic experience, and then suffering more because of that. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of counseling in that role, if that is part of your support system?
Absolutely. So I feel, honestly, whatever you choose to be your mental health recovery plan from whatever you've survived with, it really does depend on the intensity of the survival. So, for example, the way it worked with my journey was I tried therapists when I was in corporate, because I used to work for Fox before I started running my own company full time. And, great health plan, crappy therapists. So,
Mhm.
like just these therapists that would sit in the middle of Times Square or wherever in the city you would take the train to go see them in Midtown. And they just weren't passionate enough. And then when I finally did get aligned with a decent therapist for individual work, it was through state insurance. And, their office accidentally canceled during a winter season. And then because of that, they couldn't put me back on. Like, so screwed up the
And
way
it
it
all
works.
fell apart. And
Yeah, they all fell apart.
and
It's
and
crazy.
and that, it's funny that you not funny. It's actually not funny, because a lot of folks who need the most counseling, the most support for traumatic situations, and they're relying, whether it's on state institutions or state led, and not having their own private insurance, those are the things that happen. And it's like you slip through the cracks. And then a lot of times, after one missed appointment or canceled appointment, or someone didn't show, a lot of times we stop. Like the person they're not highly motivated, and they will just stop. So it's interesting that you brought that up, in terms of that experience. Did that stop you, or were you still able to kind of navigate and maneuver?
No, I actually went beyond enemy lines to the fullest. Like, I actually created a complete unique system for myself that I took some time to gather, because I felt like I was so disappointed from what I witnessed with state insurance.
Mhm.
I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to make some investments here mixed in with the plan. So my current mental health plan right now is me and Vic have been through it like crazy in our 7 years together. So when anyone ever asks, like, how do you guys get through it? Get a great couples therapist. That couples therapist is the
Mm.
best thing that you can ever invest in your marriage, in your relationship. You will lessen your fights to the core. It's just great for communication. Like, I live by our couples therapist. She's the best one I've ever had. I also have, we've never had a couples therapist before, so that's great. And then whatever he needs for individual therapy, he's responsible for, and he'll go make those investments on his own as needed for his issues.
Okay.
And then for me, for my individual planning outside of our couples therapy, I also have an Ayurvedic practitioner. So with my Ayurvedic practitioner, she helps me connect with my inner child and do my inner child healing in ways that I have never witnessed before. And she also guides me through my healing in my sexual assault, because I was actually also assaulted in my own brick and mortar a year ago. And she's guided me through that as well. She guides me through the anger that I feel for people who I thought who were going to be there for me, but weren't there for me. And she helps me to forgive, because you can't change people. You can't help people understand. The best thing you can do is just change yourself and work on yourself. So that's the healing journey I'm on right now. And that's my system. And I really don't drink like that. Wine is not kept here in this house. And if it is, it's like very once in a blue now, because it's a depressant. You know, if you want to get real sad about your issues, go get a bottle. You know, so that's my plan right now. Yeah.
Oh, you just dropped so many jewels. Someone was just commenting on the show. There was a post when I posted the flyer for you. Someone on Instagram was like, "Oh my God, I love the shows because I get a little bit out of every one, something different." Now, what you just said was you just said a few things in terms of the building of your support system. I want to go back and shout out to Vic and Victor Ramos. I got to get him on the show. One of my former students, man, one of my all-time favorite, just a great gentleman, great dude that I really want to get on the show. But you talked about couples therapy. I want to go back to couples therapy, and then we'll work our way up. There are a lot of couples, folks, married couples, or maybe, couples who are engaged to be married, or just maybe serious boyfriend and girlfriend, long-term serious boyfriend and girlfriends. How do you engage in a conversation to get your partner on board for such therapy?
Oh my God. I feel this is like the $1 million question for marriages.
How do you, because that, when you said that, I was like, oh, wow, because you don't hear that a lot. So I'm interested to hear how do you do that?
Yeah. Well, first off, Miss Rose is known for making the impossible possible. So I'll just put that out there. But if I was to not toot my own horn, but it's honestly, on a realistic level, it took a journey. So at the beginning, he wasn't about it. And then I think for a point, I wasn't about it. Or maybe if he was to hear that, he'd be like, no, Nas, you just were too angry and you weren't about it. And that could be true too. There were some things that he had done in our relationship in the first years and things that I had done in the first years that just had us so vicious. Like we had really come to a crossroad point where he did something that we didn't think we were coming up from. Like we didn't think we were coming back after this specific thing that he did. And I was just like, okay, I don't know what we're going to do, but I'm going to figure it out. And it started with his mother. If she ends up watching this, Mama, I love you. She, when I was going to leave him for this thing that he did, she was like, listen, I know that this is what it looks like right now. Like I went crazy. I was like, I got to go to a bar and find a bartending gig so I can take care of my kid at night while I'm running my company in the day. Like I was just losing my mind. And she was like, listen, I know that this is how you feel right now, but don't give up just yet. Go home. I'll take Isaiah. Just go home and pray. And I prayed that weekend till my knees bled. I prayed that weekend till my knees bled. Like it was just insane. And that's the beginning of it. If you really want to get someone involved in couples therapy, you have got to actually want it before you even make that proposal. Because if you don't want it to your core to help the bonds get better, it's not going to work. One or both are not going to be it. So, we really did that. And then when he got home, because he was gone for the weekend too, and I was able to just be in our other house by ourselves when this happened. We decided we were going to try, and it was a year of hell. We weren't on board with couples therapy still. It was when we got to this house that we live in now, being away from the crazy and really just learning how to get to a space on our own where we actually wanted to work on stuff. that we were able to start talking couples therapy again, because we were noticing the fights still happening. And we always notice that in the Latino family. Like, I hate that we get stereotyped like that, but it's just, it still really is very visible with all the fighting and the arguing and stuff. And
Yes.
we didn't want that for Isaiah, you know? So I was like, you know what, let's do this. Let's try to find a good couples therapist. And we got very lucky. Like, and again, it was because we both really wanted it. You have to really want it before you make the proposal, and you've got to prove your case. Like, we had reasons on reasons why we knew it was the best decision. Like the way that we communicated, the way that we argued, our perceptions of each other, the trust issues. Like, there was just so much into it, the insecurities, that was just like, you know what, enough of this. We're better people than this, and we need to start showing it in real life, because it has to, you know, be more than just envisioning the better people we could be in our head. All of that really helped for couples therapy to get started.
Oh, salute to you two. You know, because I know that that's not easy. I know that that's not easy to do. But it's important work, because it's like these things happen to us, and in all of our relationships, different things happen to us. And then we also bring a lot of things. I won't call it baggage, because I don't like it to be negative, but we bring our experiences with us, right? And it's like, if we're not working through those things and trying to find ways to communicate with them, and sometimes it takes, I guess, a third party to kind of guide us through those conversations and those discussions. I really thank you. That's the first time in the Purpose and Practice podcast that we've had a chance to go into that. So I know some folks are listening like, you know what, maybe I need to look into, you know what I mean, some kind of couples therapy. And you said something that resonates with me. You know, and I know growing up, we saw my brother and we saw my mom and dad argue a lot. And sometimes it got physical. And those are things that even to today, we've never really processed through, you know what I mean? Those things, but we know, like, I know, you know, for me, I'm like, I never want my kids to experience what I experienced, but I've never sat down and really processed through those things, you know. And I know that that is important, and that's why I wanted you to spend some time, you know, talking about it. So it's like you're building your thing, but it seems like you're also constantly building support systems around yourself. Is that right? Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, there's support systems on support systems. And that even took a journey, because you want to be realistic with the qualifications and expectations just as much as if you were interviewing somebody for a job role. You know, that's just really what it is. And you can't settle. Like, I've been through some real shit, like some real stuff. I don't know if we're allowed to curse on here, but like I've been through like some real deep, dark stuff. So me having a friend who doesn't know how to process those things just isn't realistic in my life anymore. And it never was. And because it's exhausting explaining to somebody who's supposed to be there for you through crazy times, but can't comprehend it, trying to help them understand why they should be, you know. And it's so sad when you witness that people don't understand that unless they actually go through the pain themselves. And it's just, I don't believe in wanting to put that karma on somebody, and I don't believe in exhausting myself explaining what a friend really should be or what a friend could be in life. I'd rather just be like, you know what, let me just accept that that's not my person. And that's what it is when it comes to support systems. When I went through what I went through a year ago in my brick and mortar, like, that was a big wake-up call. I feel like life gives you situations in life where when you're going places in life, universe is going to bring forth to you the people who should really be there. And universe is also going to wake you up to the people that you kind of should be loving from a distance. And it's really sad to come to that conclusion, but it's just very true. And it still hurts me till this day that I've had to make decisions like that. But I've been accomplishing so much more now in life for me, my team, my clients, my community, my family, ever since I decided to set those boundaries. Yes. So, you know, if you want to like really run for the next marks or run for the $1 million mark, like we are right now in Vive, like you want to really be realistic and be like, okay, what systems do I need to set in place and what support systems do I need to set in place for this to happen? And don't settle. That's where we F up. Like we really settle for what is supposed to be in our circle. No, stop chasing people. Let people earn your love. Let people earn it for a change. And that's not me being bitter or cold-hearted or anything like that. That takes 33 years of me running around begging for people to love me the way I love them for me to come to that acceptance, and I would rather set boundaries than end up like the harsh world I live in, so it's just that support system setup is so important to me, because if I can't do what I'm preaching to my people, like, how am I going to be able to show them how it's done? I have to do it myself in order to understand. And I'm big on that. Yeah.
We're kind of moving into I'm just blown away because I'm really it's really inspiring to hear your story and what shaped it and how your life has unfolded and how you you took it, and it was like, we say, make take lemons and make lemonade, but you really like flipped it to like, all right, how do I heal myself, and then work on healing the relationships of my loved ones, and then you flipped it into, now how do I create systems where I can help others do that? How can you talk to us? I mean, you're a founder, of Vive, and I really I'm starting to kind of get a sense of what Vive is all about, because I think it's like a testament of what you're saying. But can you start talking to us about when you got into the creation mode of founding Vive, and being a CEO and creating these avenues to help other folks?
Yeah, so I screwed up so heavy in the first few years. Like, I screwed up so bad. Like, I knew I had this vision of what I wanted Vive to be, but I wasn't really living it. Like, I was creating the company's first website in 2010, and I was going down the block. I was in the Bronx in my living room when I was first creating the company, and in my apartment. And I would go down the block to the liquor store because I knew they opened up at 10. And I would buy a missile, like the missile of Patron 1800. And I would come home and that was my breakfast. So, like, I don't know where I thought that I could do that and run a business like this. And it was because of the pressure, the anxiety. Like, when I'm creating this company, I'm sitting with what I've experienced with no aligned support. Like, it was the worst thing. So it made the perfect sense where I grew this disgusting habit in connection with alcohol, and it is genetically run in my family, on both sides, actually. So it's just, I was like, okay, no one's pulling the plug. It's going to start with me. And when I first founded the company, I was screwing up a ton. I ended up with 2 DUIs in Florida because I was still in the first months of my company buying drinks for everyone. I had house parties at my apartment, cooking breakfast for everybody the next day. I've got stories. One of my first team members was a designer, a web designer who I brought in from Chicago because she was going through it at home. I told her, you can live with me. You don't have to pay rent. Just help me build my business. And she was just taking advantage of my couch, smoking weed, drinking. And, I didn't have a reliable team. We ended up evicted. We ended up evicted from our apartment. And I did the craziest thing. I got an enterprise car. I jetted to Miami. And one of my other girls at the time, Natasha, she was like, what are you going to do with this girl? I was like, she could deal with the marshals. Have fun.
Oh.
I was like, she could just deal with the marshals. I jetted out of there.
Just bounced.
I just bounced. And then my crazy ass still tried to continue the company in Miami, still attracting people that didn't align with the life I was trying to create. But I also take responsibility for being naive and still falling into that lifestyle. Obviously, we have to take responsibility too.
True.
Ended up with 2 DUIs. Got in a car accident from falling asleep on the wheel from being burnt out, trying to drive from Florida to Texas and for work. And then I was going to try to continue workshops over there for my company. And the car flipped 7 times. And I was like, okay, maybe I'm not meant to do this. I should just shut down the company. Yeah, like the car was totaled. It was like flat, like straight through. And I was just like.
And you walked away from that.
And I walked away from it for like up to 2 years. That was when I met Vic, fell in love, had a kid, and restarted the company because I had hope. Yeah.
Wow. This is one of the things, like, I work with young people, right? And Vic can probably attest to this. One of my things is, and I used to always tell my students, like life, we kind of come into life and we think there's this straight line. You go from point A to point Z, and then you're successful, blah, blah, blah. And I used to always tell my students, like, yo, life is crazy, you know. And I used to share some of my experiences, because there's a lot of thin lines between me sitting right here having this conversation with you and my life being totally different. You know, for and not for the better. You know what I mean? So I think that those, and that's why I'm thankful that you're sharing those stories, because you were able to rebound from those stories, fortunately. But I think sometimes we see these polished people in front of us, and they pretend sometimes to be like they were always these polished people, and that's why I'm really feeling about your vibe, in terms of like, no, I didn't always have it together. You know, I had to go through some things. So you go through that, you do, like, you live all of our dreams of, you know, being down in Florida, like, you know, enjoying the weather, partying, trying to build a company. Things start to go left, people start to take advantage of you. I like that you did self-reflection and said, you know what, I was attracting this, you know, I was attracting these people. So you're driving, you have this accident that fortunately you walk away from. And then you go into 2 years and you talk about meeting Vic. How does that happen?
Yeah, so I went from that car accident to surviving like crazy, and the cross necklace I lost at that accident, I just finally replaced it, which is insane. By this point, we're talking about like 2013, 2014, and you know, I founded the company 2010. So wow, 2-3 years, first 2-3 years of the business. And you know, and shout out to our relations manager Monica, she's right there. So yeah, I ended up in my aunt's in North Carolina, and then in Jersey. Finally, I was always like, I always wanted to try out Jersey. And one of my guy friends at the time was offering for me to be a roommate, so I could see if it was worth it to try, you know, developing my life again in the East Coast. And I did it. And you know, craziest first year in Jersey in my life. I had him as a roommate. I had a next one as a roommate. And then I was just like, I'm done. I'm leaving Jersey. Vic hits me up out of nowhere. Now, mind you, the fun fact, while all this was happening, we first started talking when we were like 17, 18, when MySpace was lit. So,
Wow.
yeah, so we were already like in connection with MySpace. He was a club promoter, and I was the book nerd in the Bronx at school, and my girls were looking for a party, and that's how I first knew of Vic from club promoting days. So this whole time, like, he was just like randomly spotting me, and we knew that we were like dating other people, but yeah, but finally I was gonna leave Jersey, and he hits me up. I guess I had put it somewhere on one of my posts on Facebook, and he messages me saying, "How are you just gonna leave and not tell me?" And he literally
Okay, Vic.
so he was like really in there and like stalked, and he kept asking me for a date for like, I'm not kidding, like a good 7-8 months. Like, he was really in my messages trying to get me to go on a date. And I was just like, you know what, whatever. What have I got to lose? I'll just go on one date and I'll leave, you know? I never left. I never left. We ended up, our first date was McClune's at Pier Village. That was where our first date was. It was on June 5th, 2014. And then July 5th, he asked me to be his girlfriend, and we had some fun, and Isaiah came 9 months later. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a great story. So Vic was in your DMs before in your DMs was a thing.
Yeah, before my DMs was a thing, he was in my DMs. Yeah.
That's a great, that's a great story, man. And then you all just start building from there. You start building a positive relationship and a family.
Yeah, we went from sleeping on friends' couches, more his friends than mine, because I didn't really have friends in Jersey. You know, so he was at his guy's friend's house, and then he got one of our girlfriends, Karina, to let me sleep on her couch. I ended up pregnant, and then we went to his aunt, his mom's I slept on her living room floor for 2 weeks. Then we ended up at Titi Ruti's house pretty much the rest of my pregnancy. Our first apartment, we called it the box because it was a studio and it was literally like a box. I was so embarrassed when he wanted to invite people over. And we were there for like 4 months because the sparks went up and I was like, I'm not going through that while I'm pregnant. And then after that, we ended up in Freehold to Mattawan, and then now we live where we're at now in Edison.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
What a crazy story, man. That's a good that really is. And it's like, it's funny how one night out can change your whole life, and finally after months of him, begging you to go out, and it's like finally you do it, and then you're not moving. So can you talk a little bit about one of the things that I envision this show being about is also teaching people how to take like visions and dreams and make them reality, right? So one of the things, like for example, I work with high school age students, and there's some things that high school age students say, like, I wish we would have learned how to create a business. I wish, like, rather than some of these abstract classes that we have in schools. Can you talk a little bit about the process of taking a vision that you have and then making it a reality in terms of whether it's an LLC or what have you? How can you just go through that processing?
Yeah, so I love that you mentioned that, because if it's anything that I wish I learned in school, it was how to sit with myself. So I think it's really great that we're coming through with things like financial literacy, business fundamentals, and we're trying to see how we can get these things in schools. Like, I can't hear it enough of different companies that are out wanting to give this type of literacy to, the younger crowd. And I'm very excited. But the one part that's missing is energetics. The one part that's missing is really how to sit well with yourself. And I think that's why school districts started taking us on for contract work, because they knew that deep down too. We started with I think it was New Brunswick. Then we started moving our way to New York City schools, and then the pandemic hit, obviously. So now we're working, and then Covenant House. The reason why they're accepting us is because they know, mental health is essential, but there's times where we're not promoting it efficiently. The one thing that we should really learn in high school is how to sit with what we're experiencing or what we have experienced, and there should be an opportunity to hold space for that before thinking about business, before thinking about anything like that. That's why in my signature program that we have for the community to help them learn how to scale to the 6-figure mark in their business, we start with the detox phase and the prep phase, like really sitting with yourself and getting clear on what you even want to create. If you're not even clear on that yet, then how do you expect to create results? You're just going to create shitty client experiences for people because you're confused. When you really know how to sit with the vision and actually get clear on what it is that you're bringing to life, then you'll shoot up. We've never been clearer than we are right now in Vive after going on 11 years in the game come September. And when you see the publications that are coming out in the next year for our work, like, you're going to want us back for a part 2, because it's going to look like we literally came up overnight. And it's only because we got extremely clear on who we are, what we're here for, our purpose, our mission, what we're practicing with people, and how we're executing that into the world to serve others for really great results. And if you don't get that done, it's going to be very impossible to satisfy others and satisfy yourself. So if you want to have a vision and make it into a reality, get clear first and detox whatever the heck is going to get in your way of that clarity, and just believe that whoever's meant to be around will still be around at the end of the day, because you cannot possibly love others if you're not properly loving yourself.
That's such a different take on this whole thing. I mean, you really, it's funny because, I love music, right? And a lot of times, we listen to certain albums, and then sometimes we're fortunate enough to like learn the artists, what their process was for creating the album. And a lot of time, even what Kanye's doing kind of right now, a lot of time it's about this clarity, and it's about removing themselves from their day-to-day and regular, you know what I mean? Like, what you're saying kind of speaks to that a little bit. You know, like that, and you're calling it that detox, which I love, and sitting with yourself. Because I'm thinking, and I'm like, man, how do we scale something like that? So, for example, right, you work with large companies. If you work with school, you talked about working with school districts, you know, and so on and so forth. And I'm like, how do you get people to take the time to really do that? Because everyone wants to jump to success, or jump to, all right, we got to get here. How do you do that? How do you set, like, if you're meeting with a client, you know, like, how did you slow them down, so to speak? Because I know, you know, we're looking for the success. How do you do that?
You have to remind them of the integrity. They can't possibly get the results from other people that they want unless they show what it looks like. So, for example, I recently got flown into Vegas in order to accept an award. We're officially an award-winning company now. And well, we always were, but now we're getting really awarded by more prestigious organizations.
Yes.
And the Global Forum for Education and Learning actually awarded us for excellence in education and on how we educate in alternative mental health care and energetics. So tons of school district administrators were there, and, you know, from principals to even outside of the loop, angel investors. And it was a really great experience. When I came up and did my keynote session, which they threw on me when I was already landed, I wasn't even supposed to be a keynote speaker. It was so recent. I wasn't even in the book.
That's always
So,
the best. That's always the
yeah,
best.
they were like, oh yeah, all the other keynote speakers had like 3 months. You have 48 hours. I'm like, great, thanks. And I even had to request that time to just sit around day one and listen to everyone to come up with great value in the keynote. I loved my keynote because I feel honestly, my keynote had the most BIPOC questions out of every single keynote from those 3 days. And it just made me so happy. And one question that came up from one of the 4 education professionals, she had asked, she was like, you know, how can we do this? And then the gentleman at the end, same thing. How can we help alter these policies? Yeah, we'll use his question. He was like, how can we alter these policies? Because if we really look back in our history, Black education wasn't even permitted. It wasn't even allowed. It wasn't even authorized. So how do we alter these policies? And we really got into the conversation of integrity, really showing what that looks like, really showing how that can be a thing, to where we're not trying to bring in our ego because of what we've survived. This is just what's better for everyone, you know, and really being able to give that example. So to answer your question, I had let them know, you have to remind yourself to sit. You have to remind yourself to tap in with you and say, how am I? You know, like really ask yourself, how am I? Because as much as we would love to run to this success, if we don't have our foundation in place, energetically, mentally, all the things, it's going to be really tough for us to keep the rise consistent. It's going to crash as fast as it rose. And we don't want that. We want to be able to ignite the vision permanently to the point where we can create generational wealth. You have to remind yourself to sit from the beginning. You have to be the example.
That, I'm blown away, Nas. I mean, the work that you all are doing is powerful work. I mean, it's got me really thinking, because you're 100% right. And we talk about generational wealth a lot, and we talk about generational curses. And you know, whether it's not being homeowners and not having, you know, family members or parents who were homeowners, and us being set back because of that, you know. And then you start talking about, you know, creating visions of generational wealth, but not only visions, but the process of how to get there. So many times, even with generational wealth, it takes a lot of sacrifice, right? There's a group that has to sacrifice. Can you just talk a little bit about that sacrifice that may have to happen? And I know part of it is sitting with yourself, and part of it is taking your time and working on yourself first. Are there any other elements of sacrifice that are going to help this kind of work down the road?
Diminishing the ego and increasing emotional intelligence is the first thing that comes into mind, because there's still so much in the world right now that could really have us pissed off if we allow it. Like,
Yes.
one of my biggest secret weapons right now isn't only, having an aligned support system that I'm building, but I am taking the only break from so many people right now, and I am allowing the pandemic to be my blessing rather than my curse. And, I'm not saying I'm using the pandemic as an excuse, because physically I really am practicing being healthy for my son and for my family by saying, hey, I can't hang out because that's actually the law. Like what people are trying to enforce, like literally we can't do, like there has to be social distancing, all this stuff. I have to make sure I'm COVID free for my clients. So I literally have to do it, but I'm really using it as a blessing right now. And I'm taking such a heavy break from so many people right now, because before the pandemic, I feel like I could have been pretty damn close, if not it, emotionally insane. Like, honestly, I was just witnessing so much going on among so many circles, from family to acquaintances to connections. And I was just so disgusted. I literally remember saying before the pandemic hit, I need a break. Like, I kept saying it in my head, I need a break, I need a break, I need a break. And then boom, lockdown happened. I was like, what the? And it was so real. And I'm still on that big break, because not because of them, but because of me. I want to learn how to emotionally handle it, because if I keep doing things the way that I've been, I'm never going to see the impact and progress that I can make. And I'm in that healing transition right now, where I myself am sitting with myself and getting through my own healing, teaching my clients how to do it, and they're seeing progress and healing within their own lives, and really just like getting booked in business like crazy. Like, it's just it's so insane. And it's because we are really practicing that emotional intelligence, because it's essential to really learn how to witness something and say it's okay. Think about it, Howard. I don't mean to make this like a Black Lives Matter thing, but one thing that I noticed when I was really like standing for Black Lives Matter and really standing for racial injustice and social inequality, and really making a difference with this within our work and our community, when I actually glimpsed at privileged races, and I was like, what is it that they're doing that we're not, that's causing them to see more results? They're emotionally calm. They're literally like emotionally calm. Some of them are real disgustingly vengeful to where they're pissing us off within our own races, but the way that they handle stuff, they're calm. They're not passionate.
Yes.
They're not passionate. So what we do now is I say, okay, let's take some of that, but let's bring calm passion into the mix, because I don't ever want to lose my passion for what I do. That's just impossible anyway.
True.
But, really just bringing forth the success that I want to see by being the example and learning how to be emotionally calm. And when I feel like I'm ready to be around certain people, I'll be around them. But even then, it's going to be very limited, because I have zero tolerance now for certain things, and I don't settle with what's in my energy and in my space, because that can so quickly come into your soul like a heat wave. So, just learning all those things and that emotional balance, and standing for your boundaries, that can really change your results to the fullest. Because I still deal with people here and there on occasion who think they could step on me and treat me like shit, and I'm just like, okay, we're not going to grow with those people. That's it. Like, it's not that serious. It's really not that serious. You can choose who is and who isn't in your life, and who you love from a distance. But one thing that we stand for, and I actually was just discussing this in a meeting with our creative director, Anthony, and our relations manager, Monica, because Anthony Steverson's actually our creative director and our staff, is, we stand for love. We stand for that. We stand for love. We stand for change. And if we don't know how to be that, how can we expect others to even know what that looks like? Because we don't know their life. So by us simply witnessing it and being like, okay, this is what we see, how can we create change? And being that emotionally mature, we're going to create faster results. And sometimes you're going to eat the bullet, and that's okay. But when you eat the bullet for good cause, and then you soar up as a reward, people will notice. They will notice. And maybe they'll be like, wow, maybe I should kind of try to be a better person.
Yes. And you talk a lot about emotional intelligence, which I think is something that I think people understand, they know it, but they may not have ever heard it said in terms of emotional intelligence, emotional IQ. It's actually, when you look at career functions and what makes people highly successful in whatever career, that is now at the top of the list. Like being able to regulate your own emotions and to be self-regulatory and having that emotional IQ is one of the top assets that you can have, that's going to be either attractive to an employer or something that is going to take your own business to another level. I want to talk a little bit about, you mentioned Anthony Stevenson, and another one of my, a student that I had many years ago. And then there's, Vic, obviously, and y'all just seem to have, and when I say y'all now, I'm talking about generational, y'all just seem to have this idea of you're going to make this world work for you, and you're not going to be, filling out applications and working for anybody. Like you are like, talk to me about that, because let me tell you that is something I see a lot of my former students, and they're like all business owners. Like they own their own business and they seem so happy doing it. Can you just talk a little bit? No, real talk. Like, and a lot of times I'm like envious. I'm like, damn, man, they are like really killing it. But I'm also inspired because I'm like, yo, they have really created, you're using your own intellectual property to create the lives that you want and helping people simultaneously. Can you just talk about that?
Yeah, no, of course. Well, I mean, not for nothing, you have an incredible podcast show. You bring some really cool
Thank
people.
You. Thank you.
You've brought on Jerome, you've brought Aaron, you've brought Anthony, you've brought some other really cool people that I've noticed.
Yes.
So it's definitely a great show. Like this alone could be a business if you really wanted it to be. It's what it is.
That's why I need to connect with you. I gotta connect with you.
Yeah, literally, this could really be like a cool cash cow. It's definitely. It's honestly, you know what it is? It's that we all have our place in the world. There's a reason why all of us exist. If we're still alive, if we still have air in our lungs, if we're still kicking, there's a reason we're meant to be here. And discovering what that reason is and really seeing how we can make an impact with that in the world is the beauty of it. With Anthony, he is gifted in visual work. Like he knows how to get together with us, be able to know what we're getting together, do our location scouts together, and we can just have the dopest footage and images come to life. Like that's just what it is. And now we can use it for our award-winning services and how we serve other people on our website. We have Arlene Martyr, who is really great as our in-house stylist. She helps us with our look. She helps us with our wardrobe. She helps us with looking aesthetically pleasing to the visuals that Anthony puts together. The ways that we come together, we have Monica Walters, who is helping me clean up my company to the core right now because we rose up really fast in the past few months. And the reason that this alignment is happening is because we are big at connecting with that passion that's keeping us doing it. Also, there's an amount of discipline and focus that's extreme. Like one thing that Anthony mentioned during our annual manager retreat, he was like, your focus is real. And I told Vic that. I was like, well, my focus came with pain, like it came with something. And I chose to use that pain as fuel. We all have that choice. We all have that choice on if we are just going to allow that pain to be passive, or if we're going to use it as fuel so that we can make a difference from what we witnessed in that pain. And I just chose the latter because I am big about changing statistics, not seeing them increase to an even worse flow than what we're already witnessing. So, when you do that, then you can look at a vision and you can say, okay, how can we make this profitable? How can we make it sustainable? And how can we make it impactful? Like those are really the things that you can look at within your business. And if it's profitable, if it's sustainable, if you can scale it, and if it's impactful, then you've got a vision that you can see thrive, and you can either come with the game plan to transition from wherever you're at right now, or you can say, I'm just going to do it full throttle because I qualified for a loan, or I have government assistance, or whatever the case is, or I have tons of savings. I did it off of my 401k from corporate. So, it really depends on where you're at and just being realistic with yourself rather than putting yourself in a hole. Yeah.
Yo, to the community, purpose and practice. I hope you were listening. If you weren't, make sure you go back and listen because you just got free game. Because I know Nas, y'all out there charging for that kind of game, but that
Yeah.
was that's free game right there. It's so concise, and I have to agree with Anthony. You are so focused and like so on target, and it's almost like it's really refreshing and inspiring because I can tell that you're one with your vision and your people obviously feel that. So I definitely, to be able to just concisely say what you just said and break down what you just broke down is beautiful. And I always tell my students, always be prepared, to give a 15 to 20 second, overview of something you believe in, to be prepared to give a 1 minute overview and a 3 minute overview. And finally, a 15-minute overview. You just gave us like that minute and it just like hit all points and it was quick because sometimes you're in the elevator and you don't have a lot of time to explain to someone what it is that you do. But that was what you just did, it was just beautiful. I I've really really enjoyed this conversation, and I have to say, um you started off before we got on air. You were like, we're probably going to need a part two because we have these publications coming out. And we definitely need a part two for many reasons. I really think that there's a lot more that we can bring, to the community. And there's a lot more that we can learn from your journey. You share so much. I'm really I'm really thankful for what you shared because, ideally, I want these types of podcasts, this show, and these types of episodes to speak to young people. Because I think sometimes as young people, we can get into some dark spaces and we think that the world is over for us. And you explained, a lot of fight and a lot of like stepping away from some dark shadows, and being, and becoming the you that you are. So we salute and appreciate you for that.
Thank you. No, I really appreciate that. It's, you know what it is? It's when you survive stuff like this, every time that I continued it with anger, and I just talked about this with my best friend Mona when she came over. Anger is poison. Like when you operate off of poison, it's really tough for you to create results. The healing work that I've been doing is where, and I know that I said, like, setting your boundaries and knowing when to love people from afar and love them up close. The key word is love them. You know what I mean? Like the key phrase is to love them. Like, no
Yes.
matter what, like just love and forgive. And that's really something that I've worked on to the fullest in me. No matter what. And it's a super tough thing to do, but it's beautiful, the results that come after it when that forgiveness really comes into play and you just choose to be different and be the love that you wish to see. And that's what's really been helping me. And yeah, when part two comes and I come back on here, I'll have even more that we could share with you, and it'll be so cool. So yeah, thank
Yeah,
you so much.
I'm looking forward to it already. And even maybe having some of your team on. I really think that that may be cool just to have like a team, a team show. But one of the things that I wanted to ask you, and we ask all of our guests, so I don't want to let you get away without us asking you. And you've given us a lot of advice in this podcast, in this show, an episode. But one of the things I always like to ask our guests is if you can go back to your high school self and give advice to your high school self, what advice would that be and why?
Yeah, so I know that when you had asked me this before we got on, I was going to say to not worry about fitting in, but honestly, I don't think I was ever worried about that. Like, I was always big on singing on stage and just making an impact with that. And that was my escape from the pain I was facing at home. So if I was to look at my high school self, I would tell myself it's going to be okay. Like, trust me, you're here to do big things, and you don't even know what's in the cards for you yet. Like, you are here to make such an impact. It's going to be okay. Like, just trust me, just sit in faith, do what you got to do, but just know that it's all going to work out. It's going to be okay. That's what I would have told her.
I love that. I love that. That is awesome. You were awesome. You were brilliant tonight, and we really you are definitely family to the show now. You have joined the community. Thank you for giving us the time. And I hope that folks reach out, check out the website. I know I'm going to be reaching out because I think I can, I think there's some things that I can work with you with to help me, So I'm looking forward to working closer with you and learning some more about some things that can help me. So thank you for that. I really do appreciate it. And we think, we're really thankful that you came on the show and gave us some time tonight. And we wish you continued success, you and your team. Check out Vibe. We had the founder of Vibe, Nas Rose, Miss Rose, and please pronounce your name because I want it pronounced correctly for the show.
Yes. So Nas is the nickname, the name of the game for me for my nickname, but Nastasya Rose is yes. My name. Yeah.
Okay. So I had it right, Nastasya. I had it right when I said it. Yeah. So Nastasya Rose. I didn't know because I think that's really important. Some people will say, "Oh, it doesn't matter," but I think pronouncing people's names or trying to, making honest attempts to, is really important. So I'm all for that. So thank you again for joining us and dropping so many jewels, so many gems, and bless you and in the family. And please give Vic my best and let him know I'm coming for him. I definitely got to come for him and get him on the show.
Yes, it will be an honor. Thank you so much. We love what you guys talked about here on the show, and we look forward to coming back for part 2. Yeah.
Awesome. Take care to the community. We'll be back next week. We got a special guest coming up next week. We're going to be on Thursday though, but we'll get out some information for that show. Thanks again. Peace out, everyone. Have a great week. We got the start of the week. So it's Monday. Have a great week. Take care. Love y'all.
Bye.
It's a 9-chord banger. Dr. Ross dropping knowledge to the masses. Man, you now tuned in to purpose and practice. Purpose and practice. Keep your mental sharp. Learn all the tactics. Dr. Ross dropping knowledge to the masses. Man, you now tuned in to purpose and practice. Purpose and practice.